Welcome back, Mind Walker. Step inside carefully, because this time the truth isn't loud. It's surgical. You didn't outsmart them, you just refused to play dumb. And that single shift, that quiet, internal, "I'm done acting smaller so others feel bigger," is what flipped the entire power dynamic without you lifting a finger. See, people always assumed you were naive, not because you actually were, but because you allowed simplicity, softness, politeness, and silence to shield your intuition. You let them think you didn't notice. You let them believe you were clueless. You let them assume you were slow to catch on. You let them feel comfortable in the illusion that you were easy to fool. But the moment you stopped playing dumb, the moment you stopped giving people the benefit of the doubt, the moment you stopped pretending not to see the things you've always seen, everything changed. Because you weren't blind, you were accommodating. You weren't unaware. You were observant. You weren't slow. You were studying. You weren't weak. You were watching. You were never the one being outsmarted. You were simply choosing not to expose your awareness. And they mistook your quiet for ignorance. They mistook your patience for permission. They mistook your kindness for weakness. They mistook your trust for emptiness. They mistook your silence for confusion. But you weren't confused. You were collecting data. You were connecting dots while pretending not to see the lines. You were tracking patterns while acting unbothered. You were reading their energy while nodding casually. You were noticing inconsistencies while letting them talk. And the whole time, they thought the mask you wore was your face. They didn't realize you were giving them space to reveal who they really were. Because here's the thing, people don't understand about minds like yours. You learn more by pretending not to know than most people learn by trying to be smart. Your silence disarms them. Your calm confuses them. Your stillness makes them comfortable. Your neutrality makes them reckless. Your lack of reaction convinces them you're not keeping track. And that's exactly why they slipped. They became transparent, predictable, sloppy with their words, careless with their intentions, loose with their tone, revealing with their energy. They mistook your understanding for emptiness. But nothing about you was empty. You just weren't performing intelligence for validation. You don't need to look smart. You are smart, quietly smart, strategically smart, intuitively smart. Your intelligence isn't theatrical, it's atmospheric. And atmospheric intelligence is the most dangerous kind. Because it moves in silence, it observes without reacting. It listens deeper than the words spoken. It senses before evidence appears. It feels before logic kicks in. You didn't outsmart them because outsmarting implies competition. There was no competition. There was misinterpretation. They misinterpreted you as someone who wouldn't notice, wouldn't question, wouldn't challenge, wouldn't grow, wouldn't evolve, wouldn't wake up. They thought you'd stay in the version of yourself they felt safest manipulating. But the moment you stopped playing dumb, you removed the comfort they relied on. You didn't switch personalities. You simply stopped hiding the parts of yourself that were always awake. Your intelligence is subtle, not loud, not performative, not ego-driven. It's the kind of intelligence that makes people uncomfortable once they realize you've been seeing everything the entire time. They replay memories, they re-examine conversations, they rethink decisions, they question things they said around you. They start wondering, did they know? Were they aware the whole time? Yes, you knew. You always knew. You just didn't react. And that scares people more than anything. Because a person who reacts can be manipulated. A person who stays silent cannot. Silence is control. Silence is leverage. Silence is power. Silence is strategy. When you stopped playing dumb, you didn't turn into someone new. You revealed the person you were hiding for the sake of peace. And the room changed. People who used to talk too freely started choosing their words carefully. People who used to treat you carelessly suddenly adjusted their tone. People who once underestimated you turned cautious. People who once assumed too much recalibrated their behavior. Because you stopped shrinking. And when someone stops shrinking, everyone else suddenly realizes just how big they actually are. Your intelligence isn't sharp, it's deep. Not the type that cuts people, but the type that disarms them. It's the intelligence that sees through intentions before they become actions. You pick up on shifts in tone, micro-expressions, subtle hesitations, hidden meanings, energy temperature changes, unspoken motives. What they meant is what they said, the truth behind the performance. You see everything people don't want you to see, but you don't expose them, you just adjust. And your adjustment is the real plot twist, because when you finally stopped pretending, your entire frequency changed. You started speaking less, but understanding more. You started trusting less, but connecting more deeply. You started giving less access, but building more authority. You started using your mind instead of explaining it. You stopped giving explanations and started giving distance. You stopped giving chances and started giving consequences. You stopped excusing behavior and started reading patterns. And that transformation, that quiet refinement, that subtle elevation, is what made everyone around you realize how wrong they were about who they thought you were. You were never easy. You were never simple. You were never oblivious. You were never slow. You were observant enough to let them reveal their hand before you revealed yours. You didn't outsmart them. You outpatienced them. You outweighted them. You outlistened them. You outread them. They were playing checkers. You were watching the entire board. They were trying to trick you. You were watching their patterns. They were studying your reactions. You were studying their intentions. You weren't one step ahead. You were operating from a completely different map. And here's the wild part. People who try to manipulate are always convinced they're the smartest in the room. But they forget something crucial. The quiet one is always the real threat. The quiet one is the one calculating. The quiet one is the one decoding. The quiet one is the one preparing. The quiet one is the one evolving. The quiet one is the one everyone underestimates, until it's too late. You didn't outsmart them. You outgrew their tactics. You evolved past their game. You matured past their manipulation. You healed past their projections. You elevated past their expectations. You stopped playing dumb the moment you decided to stop tolerating dynamics that insulted your intelligence. And your intelligence? It's not about knowing everything. It's about seeing through everything. People think intelligence is about logic. But your intelligence is about perception. And perception is the kind of power that doesn't just outsmart people. It makes them rethink everything they thought they had over you. You refusing to play dumb became the most disruptive move you could ever make. Because now, they can't predict you. They can't manipulate you. They can't guilt you. They can't confuse you. They can't underestimate you. They can't use you emotionally. They can't speak to you the same way. They can't treat you like the old version. The old you was accommodating. The new you is aware. The old you was patient. The new you is precise. The old you was trusting. The new you is discerning. The old you gave people too much room. The new you gives people the exact amount of space their intentions deserve. You didn't outsmart them. You stopped pretending you didn't know better. And that one shift is what changed the entire game. The moment you stopped playing dumb, you didn't just shift the dynamic, you exposed the entire illusion everyone else was operating in. Because the truth is, people weren't threatened by your intelligence. They were threatened by the fact that you never weaponized it. As long as you kept your awareness quiet, they felt safe, comfortable, confident, in control, superior, untouchable. You played the part that made them feel like the smartest person in the room, and that illusion fed their ego more than anything else ever could. But the moment you stopped shrinking your perception just to maintain their comfort, they didn't just lose control. They lost the version of themselves you allowed them to pretend to be. Because here's the truth that hits people the hardest. You weren't acting dumb to hide weakness. You were acting dumb to protect them from the mirror you carry. A mirror that doesn't lie. A mirror that doesn't soften. A mirror that doesn't flatter. A mirror that doesn't bend to ego. A mirror that reflects every insecurity they hide behind confidence, chaos, or charm. When you stopped playing dumb, they finally had to see themselves without the filter your softness once provided. That's why everything shifted so violently. Because people don't fear being outsmarted. They fear being seen. And your intelligence doesn't just analyze people. It understands them. Their wounds, their motives, their emotional baggage, their contradictions, their inconsistencies, their patterns, their performance, their triggers, their fears, their ego. Most people don't want to be understood at that depth. Understanding strips away performance, and performance is all some people know. They preferred you dumb because dumb meant manageable, but you were never theirs to manage. And when you stopped playing along, it became obvious. You weren't outsmarting them, you were outgrowing them. You were waking up to your own intelligence, your own intuition, your own clarity, your own power. And that awakening made the masks fall off. You noticed the tone shifts, the micro gestures, the unspoken resentment, the jealousy hidden beneath compliments, the manipulation hidden beneath advice, the insecurity hidden beneath confidence, the intentions hidden beneath kindness. You noticed how people acted when you needed something, versus how they acted when they needed something. You noticed who wanted you powerful and who wanted you dependent. You noticed who admired you and who wanted to be you. You noticed who supported you and who kept you under their thumb by praising you just enough to keep you small. You noticed it all, not suddenly, but finally. Because once you stop playing dumb, your awareness begins to expand in a way you can't reverse. Your intuition becomes undeniable. Your clarity becomes razor sharp. Your mind stops giving discounts. Your spirit stops tolerating inconsistencies. Your energy stops making exceptions. And the moment you stepped into that clarity, the truth hit you like a quiet revelation. They needed you to play dumb because their entire identity was built on you not knowing better. They needed you to play dumb because your intelligence disrupts their script. They needed you to play dumb because your awareness would expose what they've been getting away with. People don't fear your mind. They fear accountability. And suddenly, your presence began to demand it. Without words, without confrontation, without revenge, without shouting. Your presence alone became a completely different experience. Because before, they felt taller around you. Now they feel transparent. Before, they felt smarter around you. Now they feel sloppy. Before, they felt superior around you. Now they feel exposed. Before, they could manipulate the narrative. Now they're scared to speak too freely. Before, they felt in control. Now they feel out of their depth. And the craziest part? You didn't change what you know. You changed what you show. That's the difference. You didn't become smarter overnight. You just stopped hiding the intelligence you were always carrying. And that subtle shift turned into a psychological earthquake. Because people who rely on others being naive don't know how to behave around someone who sees everything. You walked into the same rooms with the same body, with the same voice. But the atmosphere changed because the energy behind your eyes changed. You see now, not just what people say, but what they mean. Not just what they show, but what they hide. Not just how they act, but why. Your awareness is no longer partial. It's full spectrum. And full spectrum awareness makes you someone people cannot lie to. Even if they try. Even if they're good at it. Even if they think they're convincing. Your intuition catches the truth before they even form the lie. You spot the hesitation. You catch the micro drop in eye contact. You feel the emotional tightness in their voice. You notice the shift in energy they hoped you wouldn't pick up on. You notice the mismatch between their words and their spirit. And that mismatch is the giveaway nobody can hide from you anymore. People sense that. They feel it. They panic. Not because they're guilty, but because they're used to environments where their facade works. Now they're facing someone whose intelligence can't be fooled by facial expressions, or tone, or fake sincerity, or forced kindness, or well-constructed sentences. They don't know how to navigate someone who isn't manipulated by emotion, or swayed by compliments, or blinded by sympathy, or weakened by fear, or confused by mixed signals. Your clarity is dangerous to people who survive off confusion. Your awareness is dangerous to people who operate in shadows. Your intuition is dangerous to people who hide behind charm. Your intelligence is dangerous to people who depend on others, feeling inferior. You didn't outsmart them. You stopped dimming the genius that makes your spirit so rare. And once you stepped into that light, once you stopped pretending, once you stopped shrinking, once you stopped playing along, you became someone they could no longer exploit. You became someone they could no longer deceive. You became someone they could no longer underestimate. You became someone they could no longer manage. You became someone whose presence alone forces others to rethink their intentions. And that's why, suddenly, people act cautious around you. They choose their words carefully. They over-explain themselves. They adjust their tone. They watch your reactions. They monitor your silence. They analyze your facial expressions. They second-guess their statements. Not because you're intimidating, but because they know you can see through them now. Your intelligence became a mirror people can't hide from. Not sharp, not cold, not judgmental, just accurate. And accuracy terrifies those whose identity depends on being misunderstood. You breaking the illusion made everyone reveal their true self. And now that you see them clearly, you'll never unsee it. Your refusal to play dumb didn't just change how you move, it changed how everyone moves around you. Because now, every room you enter becomes a truth-telling room. Every conversation you join becomes an energetic scan. Every connection you allow must match your new clarity. You didn't outsmart them, you transcended them. You stepped into a mental altitude they cannot climb. And from that altitude, you see the whole landscape. Their intentions, their patterns, their motives, their contradictions, their vulnerabilities. You were never beneath them. You were simply beneath your potential. And the moment you rose, they realized you were the one they should have never underestimated. And now, we step into the final truth. The truth they're wrestling with quietly. The truth they would never admit out loud. The truth that keeps echoing in their mind every time they replay old conversations with you. You never lacked intelligence. You lacked the willingness to reveal it. Because the version of you they once knew was gentle enough to overlook their intentions, kind enough to excuse their patterns, soft enough to ignore their inconsistencies, and trusting enough to assume their honesty. But the version of you standing here now, that version isn't operating on assumption. It's operating on evidence, on intuition, on discernment. You don't think anymore, you know. And knowing changed everything. The moment you stopped playing dumb was the moment the masks around you fell off. Not because you demanded truth, but because your energy started rejecting anything that wasn't aligned with it. Your awareness became a filter, a quiet, powerful filter that sorts everything effortlessly. You don't argue with people's intentions now. You read them. You don't question your instincts. You trust them. You don't wait for proof. You feel the truth. And that's what made you dangerous in their eyes. Not your intelligence, but your refusal to ignore it. You're not calling people out. You're just not letting them in. And that shift alone has changed the entire ecosystem of your life. Suddenly, people who once dominated conversations fall silent around you. People who once lectured you start stumbling over their own explanations. People who once assumed authority start checking themselves before speaking in front of you, because something in your energy now says, I see you, completely, accurately, and I'm not pretending anymore. And being seen that clearly is terrifying for anyone who relies on confusion to stay relevant. You didn't outsmart them, you outgrew their version of the story, because that version required you to be blind, trusting, obedient, unaware. But that script expired the moment you realized your intelligence doesn't need to be loud to be lethal. Your mind doesn't attack, it reveals. Your intuition doesn't guess, it confirms. Your silence doesn't hide weakness, it hides strategy. And your presence doesn't intimidate people, it illuminates them. You expose people simply by standing there. You reveal intentions simply by listening. You unravel lies simply by not reacting. You dismantle manipulation simply by staying conscious. This is what they never understood. When you were pretending to be naive, you were actually giving them space to decide what kind of person they wanted to show you. You weren't hiding. You were testing. You were observing. You were gathering evidence for decisions you knew you'd eventually make. And now, those decisions have been made. You see people for who they are, not who they claim to be, not who they pretend to be, not who they want you to believe they are. Your vision is clean now. And clean vision is the end of every illusion that once controlled you. The brilliance of your transformation isn't that you became smarter. It's that you finally gave yourself permission to stop shrinking your intelligence for people who never would have done the same for you. Your mental light isn't a threat, it's a truth serum. And the people who can't handle that truth are the ones who benefited the most from your old blindness. They wanted you quiet, they wanted you soft, they wanted you unaware, they wanted you dependent on their narrative. But you reclaimed your perception, and perception is power, real power. The quiet kind. The kind that doesn't need validation or applause or dominance or recognition. The kind that simply exists and shifts the entire room because of its accuracy. You didn't outsmart them. You remembered who you were before the world convinced you to underestimate yourself. You remembered the clarity you buried. You remembered the instincts you ignored. You remembered the intelligence you softened to make others feel comfortable. And once you remembered, you refuse to go back. That's what terrifies them now. They're not scared of your mind. They're scared of your awareness, your boundaries, your silence, your perception, your self-respect, your ability to see people exactly as they are without needing any of them. You stopped playing dumb, and suddenly everyone else had to confront how loud their own foolishness was. Now the truth sits in front of them, unavoidable. You were never the naive one. You were the patient one, the observant one, the intuitive one, the strategic one. And now that you've stepped into that power fully, there's no going back to pretending again. You don't need to outsmart anyone. You just need to stay awake. Because an awakened mind is more powerful than any game they ever tried to play.